ever are in West Lafayette, Indiana, make sure you stop by AJ's, which is off of Vine Street. The food is amazing. Now it's time for the interview. I am so happy to have on JJ French of Twisted Sister. Take me through. What was the day that you fell in love with the guitar?
Oh my God, I learned when I was 10 in camp. My first guitar teacher taught me some chords. And then weirdly enough, and I do mean weirdly enough, as much as remember I was born in 1952, so that's 1962, right? I learned how to play my first couple of chords. But then the Beatles came around 64, loved them, and started playing bass in 1965 with a local band. But guitar hit me um, when I heard the Paul Butterfield Bland Blues album, which is 1966, 67, around there. And I heard Mike Bloomfield on guitar, and I said, I want to do that. That was it. That was the catalyst. So I was 14 going on 15 because I had seen my first concert. I was 14 and I went to, you're not going to believe this because you just can't probably wrap your head around what I'm going to tell you. But the first concert was the Murray the K, who you don't know who Murray the K is. He's a famous disc jockey in New York. And he had these rock reviews back in the day where he had 10 groups on one afternoon. And Cream and The Who were the opening bands, and no one knew who they were. Like no one had a clue. A guy who took me to the show knew who they were. So I heard The Who and I heard of Cream, and they were the opening bands. They played two songs each. And that was so the headliner was the Young Rascals and Wilson Pickett. I don't know if you know who Wilson Pickett is or Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels, but there was 10 groups on the bill. And in those days, you played 90-minute shows where 10 bands played for 90 minutes. Every band played two songs. You can imagine this. So there's 7 shows a day for 9 days, 90-minute shows. And the tickets were $3 each. And so that was kind of like the beginning of my love of the whole rock and roll thing, and the blues thing really hit me big with the Paul Butterfield Blues Band, and it went from there.
And you mentioned that The Who and Cream only were able to do two songs each opening. Typically, openers might get to do 5 or 6 songs. Do you remember the first time Twisted Sister ever got to open for somebody, and how many songs did you guys get to do?
Yeah, well, we our first gig was playing at the Satellite Lounge in Wrightstown, New Jersey. In those days, you did 5 shows a night. That's how you started. So you did 5 40-minute sets a night. So Tuesday night we went on at 9 to 9:40, 10 to 10:40, 11 to 11:40. In those days we were doing cover material, all David Bowie, Lou Reed, Mott the Hoople, Rolling Stones, that kind of stuff, Alice Cooper, that was it. We were all cover material. And on the weekends you opened for a show band, and that the show band the first weekend was Little Anthony and the Imperials. They were a very famous doo-wop group in the 50s. Back in those days, that's kind of the way it worked in New Jersey. You played 6 nights a week in one room, 5 shows a night, and you played until 2 o'clock in the morning on the weekdays and 4 o'clock in the morning on weekends. And that's how you did it.
Do you think that with AI coming into music that we're gonna see creativity go away? Because you mentioned that you would play until 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. A lot of people these days, it feels like we live in this world where it's like, I just want to do my 8 hours a day at school or my 8 hours a day at a job. I don't want to do 6 hours hearing loud music, playing 5 songs for 40 minutes or whatever. Do you think AI is going to kill creativity at all in that?
You're asking someone who doesn't have to deal with it. And if I was out there looking, I mean, there's a lot of bands playing all the time. There's bands playing every day. So you can go to clubs in New York and see young groups playing. People still want to be out there. But I'm not sure the effect of AI yet in the music industry. Everyone's speculating what it could mean. But so far, at least for me, I've gone out to see bands. Friend of mine, kids' bands, they're playing, and no one does what we do. The days of playing 5 shows a night, 4 shows a night, 4 40-minute sets or 5 40-minute sets or whatever, those are gone. The best you do is 40 minutes. Maybe that's the most you do as a young band in a bar. Some 20-year-old kid came up to me, well, not infrequently, and they go, "Hey man, like, why don't you come and see my band?" And I go, "How long you been together?" They go, "2 years." And I'll say, "How many shows have you done in 2 years?" And they'll go, "Like a lot, man. We've done like 50 shows, like one every 2 weeks," which sounds like a lot. Okay, I get it. And I go, "How long is the show?" It's like 45 minute sets. I said, "So you've done 50 45-minute shows in 2 years." And they'll go, "Yeah." And I'll say, "Well, when you get to 500 shows, let me know and I'll come and see you." And they'll go, "500, man. Why?" I said, "Because the chances are you're going to suck until you hit 500, and I don't have time to watch you suck. But by the time you hit 500 shows, I'm sure it'll be good." And they'll say, like, "Hey, man, like, why would you say that? Like, how many shows have you done? Blah, blah, blah." And I went, "Well, you shouldn't have asked me that question because in the first 30 months of the band's career, beginning in March of 73 to Labor Day of 75, we played 3,450 45-minute shows. So, by the time Twisted got signed, we were at 7,000, 8,000 shows, something like that.
Wow. And I
Yeah.
just thought of somebody like Ted Nugent who's done over 7,500 shows. And when I hear your thing right there at 3,500, that's crazy.
Yeah, and that's before D joined. So after D
Because he
joined,
joined
we
in
did another four.
76, which most people don't know. You're the founder.
Right.
You obviously had some early work with Kiss when they were Wicked Sister.
Wicked Lester. Wicked Lester.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then D joined in 76.
Right.
And
With Eddie Ojeda joined at the end of 75. And then we did together. I mean, me, Eddie, and D have stood shoulder to shoulder for 6,000 performances, maybe. I don't know, like crazy amount of. Remember, I want to be clear with people. That's not nights, that's performances. There's multiple shows a night in the early days. In terms of nights, well over 3,000 nights of rock and roll, which takes a heavy toll on you over the years.
so going back, if you had to pick one time a tour was maybe the most crazy or the most hectic or the most shows back to back to back with Twisted Sister, what would you say is the craziest story you have from maybe going to another country, going back to back, or in the United States?
Well, the story I tell that's the craziest, and we played the Arctic Circle on a Thursday and Oklahoma City on a Sunday. And to get to the Arctic Circle took 24 hours. And we got there, slept for 10 hours, woke up and played a show at 3 a.m. and finished at 5, and then stayed awake and then flew 24 hours to Oklahoma City. Slept 10 hours, woke up, did a show, and then flew home. So in an 80-hour period of time, we covered 12 time zones, and we played in the Arctic Circle, and it was in July, and the sun doesn't set in the Arctic Circle. That's why you play there in July. So us and Deep Purple were serenading 10,000 of the drunkest people I've ever played to in my life, who were passed out on a field. Like they were so drunk they couldn't even walk, let alone clap between songs. They were just passed out. And that's what they do. And that's why they hire you to serenade these people. And then we went to Oklahoma City. It was 110 degrees. And we played there and we came home. And that was in one basically 8 hour, 80-hour stretch. And my wife asked me how I felt when I got home. And I said, I used to pay money in high school to get in this condition, and I have no, I have no desire to feel like this again. It was pretty crazy. But look, the most nights we played in a row was 17 nights in a row. Back in the bar days, we did 17 straight nights. But back in the early days with the band, we did 105 nights from Labor Day, from Memorial Day to Labor Day in one club. You know,
That's a lot.
that's a lot. Yeah. 5 days a week, 4 shows a night for 15 weeks in one room.
Incredible. And what's something that has always stuck with you because, obviously you're getting paid once you make it big. It's I don't want to say it's easier, but like if you make it big, it's like, you're getting paid money with it. But in those early days, what is the difference between, I guess, going back, but still for anybody in the music world today, what's the difference between somebody who's going to make it and not? Is it work ethic? Is it luck? Is it who you know? What would you say?
Depends on what your goal is. Our goal was always to get a record deal and make it famous, but we were lucky to grow up in a Long Island bar scene where it was very lucrative and you made a lot of money. So we never starved. We were making a lot of money. In fact, a lot of the bands in the scene were making so much money they didn't want to make it famous because they knew they'd go broke again, and they were making too much money in the bar scene. Because in those days the bar scene was crazy. You have to remember, the drinking age was 18, which meant 15-year-old kids with fake proof were getting in. So the amount of kids was insane. So the clubs were gigantic. So when people think of a club, what do they think of? A 200-seat club, 300-seat club? We played clubs that held 1,000, 2,000, 4,000, 5,000. This is clubs. This was copy band clubs. You understand? It's a whole other world. It's a whole other life. And a lot of the bands coming out of that life didn't want to leave that life. And we never wanted to stay in that life. So we took a risk and left that life and suffered a couple of years because of it.
And something that's really interesting is I feel like today, when there are bars and stuff like that, even in big cities, it's just not the same. You don't have that 3 to 4 thousand. And it's not because of the drinking age, even. I just don't feel like people are doing that anymore. Like, it's like these amphitheaters seat 3,000 people outside max sometimes. But back 50 years ago, 40 years ago, 30 years ago, you would have 3,000 in a space of 500. It just seems like an entirely different world.
Well, what's really crazy is that 50 years ago, or you could go to the Fillmore East to see Jimi Hendrix and the Grateful Dead and Led Zeppelin, and it held like 2,000 people, and the tickets were $3. And that was typical. Tickets were $3. And if you couldn't afford the $3 because it was too much money, you go to Central Park to the Schaefer Festival, and the same bands were playing the Schaefer Festival, and the tickets were $1. Think about this for a second. Try to process that. I don't care if it's Zeppelin, the Grateful Dead, Sly and the Family Stone, the band. I don't care who it is. The tickets were $1 and $1.50. And so, you know, people can't wrap their head around that. They don't get it. So all these great classic bands I didn't see them in arenas. I didn't see them, in stadiums. I saw them in bars, clubs, small theaters. That was the luxury my generation had, which you guys don't have. You pay ridiculous amount of money to stand 8,000 feet away from an artist. We pay nothing to stand 30 feet away from an artist.
Which is just absolutely crazy when you think about it. Is there a specific venue or country? I always like asking people who have made it big in music, like yourself, and I always like asking, is there a specific country? I've always heard everybody's nice in the world. Everybody loves music. It's one of the things people can get along about. But is there a specific country or region that's just really personal to you performing it? I mean, you mentioned the Arctic Circle in Oklahoma, but thinking from a country demographic standpoint, is there like a country that I would be shocked or that most people would be shocked that was really cool to perform in?
Well, I think our number one Spotify country is Mexico, number one. Mexico is a phenomenal country. All of South America is phenomenal. The kids there they treat rock and roll like a religious experience. And Europe too, more so than America. And I have a theory which people haven't objected to the theory, but try to explain it to you. When you go to a baseball game or football game in the United States, you would not touch the person next to you. You may high five them in a touchdown or a home run. But if you don't know them, you wouldn't touch them. But in South America and Europe, in soccer stadiums, they're hugging each other, they're singing songs, they're very emotional and they're very like touchy-feely, and it's like a thing. And I noticed that in festivals in Europe, people are used to, you know, being together and touching each other and singing along and emoting. And in South America, it's even more so. But as great as South America is, and it's phenomenal, we were told that Buenos Aires is the craziest city in the world for rock music, and it was certainly the most over the top response I've ever seen in my life. The fans were so obsessive that they were not singing the lyrics. That's old stuff. They were singing our guitar solos note for note. I can't tell you how disconcerting that is when you're not playing your solos the way they're on the album and they're singing your solos to you. So South America in general, phenomenal. European fans, phenomenal, but South America, crazy. Mexico, love them. Brazil, gigantic in Brazil, phenomenal. They're all, it's a different, it's not the numbers, it's the emotiveness, the emotional connection people make. And they're more emotional in Europe and especially in South America. At least you feel it more as a musician.
Wow. And two other things. One is, do you get to like, do you have much control over where you get to tour, or how does that work?
Promoters contact you through our agent, and they make offers, and you decide where you want to play. That's it. We don't have to send out feelers. They all come to us, and they'll go, "This is what we'd like you to play here," and then you negotiate your deal and you do it. So now, in terms of where we're playing, I'll make this blanket statement. Our website, twistedsister.com, will always be um, updated constantly. So we are in October. We're not going to start playing till May. So check the website. When someone says, "Where are you playing?" You know what I do? I look at the website. I can't keep track on the countries and the locations. So just go to the website and you'll see where we're playing.
Or follow social media pages?
Well, you know that website, I mean, Instagram, TikTok, right, whatever. It'll all be up there. You're 100% right. It'll be out there. You'll know it before me, and you'll remember it before me, because to me, it's like a blur, so.
And then kind of my last question is obviously doing this tour in 2026, 50 years. What's it going to be like?
In what way? How am I going to feel?
Yeah, what's it going to be like just getting back together for, a big tour? It's been a few years.
Um, well, I would be lying if I said that standing on stage in front of 100,000 people with them singing "We're Not Going to Take It" isn't the thrill of a lifetime. You would have to be an idiot to not say that that's not the thrill of a lifetime. It is a validation of all the work you put in. And to hear it back when you're standing there, to take it all in, is unbelievable. Our fans are amazing. Every band says their fans are the best, and I won't take that away from any band. I'm sure every band, your fans are the best. We love our fans. Well, how could you not be on stage in a giant festival and have these people singing "I Want to Rock," "We're Not Going to Take It," you name it, and not feel like you're the luckiest person on earth? So we're lucky. Now, it just unfortunately happens that a lot of our peers are not doing well physically. A lot of bands are basically falling by the wayside due to health issues. So unfortunately, our genre of music is fading out. And the whole metal 80s thing is fading out. In another couple of years, it will be gone. So this will be the end of that era. And another era will come up. Maybe the grunge era will come up. But the Poison, Motley, Twisted Priest, that whole, Sabbath, it's all going. So this is like the last, it's like the Stones are the last connection to the Beatles. So people go see the Stones for better or worse, whether you like them or not like them. My God, I'm holding on to my last bit of, 60s. Well, we're the last bit of 80s. So there's a bit of that. There's a bit of bittersweet. But excuse me, I'm looking forward to it.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Is there anything else you have to say for young people?
Well, my podcast, the JJ French Connection on Spotify is great because I bring a lot of musicians and people come on the show and, we'll talk about this, and it's important to do that. Follow that. My book, Twisted Business, is available on Amazon. So please pick that up. Check our website. It's to keep up to date on what Twisted is planning to do. And I just want to thank your listeners, if they're Twisted Sister fans there, for supporting us all these years, and know that we appreciate that immensely.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the show today, and thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.